Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we'll be talking about the 6th round of the X2O Trofee held in Hamme, also known as the Flandrien Cross. With me here to talk about it is Twan.
Hello.
Now Isam here today to talk with us. He couldn't make it unfortunately, but nevertheless we'll be taking a look at this race here in Hamme. I'll give a summary of the men's race where it was Van der Poel who took the head start, and it was, it took him about 10 minutes where he was sitting in the pack. He also had a small crash, but nothing too big. He managed then to take the lead and he attacked with Michael van Toornout in his wheel. Van Aert was far behind. I think he was in 5th or 6th place. He said he was surprised by the aggressiveness for the bonification sprint, and because of that he was too far behind. So he couldn't immediately react, and when Van der Poel attacked, Van Toornout got dropped quite quickly, and from there on actually Van der Poel just kept on riding and he never really was challenged. Van Aert did eventually make the way up into second. He came somewhat close, but every time he came a bit closer, Van der Poel responded with a faster lap time. And in the end, it was Van der Poel who won, 7 seconds in front of Van Aert. With in behind it was Sweeck, who overtook Tom Pidcock with a couple of laps to go to end third. So it's of course the win here for Van der Poel. I personally think he was in control the entire race. What do you think, Twan?
Yeah, it really just felt like he had quite an easy ride today. I have to be honest. I think halfway through the race, I just turned my PlayStation on and just had it kind of in the background going on, and everything basically went as expected. Wout van Aert keeping the pressure on, not giving Van der Poel anything for free, but Mathieu van der Poel just able to respond to that and just putting in an amazing ride today.
Van Aert said he was surprised by the aggressiveness which the other riders sprinted with at the end of the first lap for the bonification sprints. Because of that, he was too far behind to react on Van der Poel, what he said in the post-race interview. But he already didn't have the best start. I mean, of course, his initial getaway and his run into the first corner was good. He was side by side with Van der Poel, but then he was 5th as well. So I think that's something that Van Aert definitely needs to work on, not only going towards the World Championships next weekend, because if Van der Poel opens a gap in the first lap, or at least if he's at the front and tries to open a gap, if you're 5th, I mean, it's really hard if Van der Poel opens a gap. We saw today of 10-15 seconds to close that.
Yeah, and I think it's just a bit weird for Van Aert to be surprised by such things and not have the best first laps. I think there's only one mission for that whole first lap, and it's just be on the wheel of Van der Poel and try and overtake him if you feel like it. But there's no world in which it is kind of like acceptable, or it should be acceptable to him that he's 2 or 3 riders behind Van der Poel, because you're making it a whole lot harder on yourself and you're relying on people that you know aren't on this level.
And then maybe if we do take a short glance ahead at the World Championships next week in Oostend, after 1 or 2 minutes you're already sprinting up this massive bridge into the sand, and if you have the same situation then you really need to hope that nobody in front of you makes a mistake, because then it could get nasty. A bit further behind them, around a minute in the end, we saw Laurens Sweeck coming 3rd. He rode a pretty good recovery race. He got the dent in his front wheel somewhere in the first 3 laps of the race, and he needed to come back from quite far behind, ending 3rd, eventually overtaking Pidcock. I do think this is definitely a good performance by Laurens Sweeck. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a quite surprising ride as well by Laurens Sweeck. As the season goes on and we go to more muddier courses and kind of harder courses as well, you can expect to see Laurens Sweeck less and less. He tends to really struggle on those and not really be a contender for the top 5 placings or even a podium like he did today. And I think this is an amazing performance by him.
I definitely think so as well. It certainly surprised me a bit, especially because when he apparently had that dent, I didn't know that at the time he fell back. I thought, oh, this is just another race where Sweeck has a decent start but then falls back. I mean, of course, he did have that 4th place at the Belgian Champs and the 2nd place in Mol, but before that it was a couple of back-end top 10s, like 8th in Hulst and 9th in Baal. Not the type of results that you would expect from Sweeck, maybe. But I do think that he rode a good recovery race, and perhaps that race he rode last week helped him stay in a rhythm, whilst others were maybe a bit out of rhythm, and that could potentially help him going towards the World Championships next week, but that's for a later podcast. Let's run down the entire top 10 then. We had Van der Poel, Van Aert, Zweek, and then, as I said, Pidcock in 4th in front of Toon Aerts, Corné van Kessel, Elisabeth, Michael van Toornout, Felipe Orts, and Lars van der Haar. I'd like to talk about 2 riders here, both from Paul Sauzen in 7th and 8th, Elisabeth and Michael van Toornout. First, Elisabeth, what do you make of his race?
He still doesn't seem to be quite okay, definitely not reaching the levels that he would want to reach, especially so close to the World Championships, so it will be interesting to see what he can do, of course, next week there. It just doesn't look good enough, I have to be honest.
I think so as well. He hasn't convinced me that he's fully recovered, although he has said so. I do want to defend him maybe a bit, as he said he did 25 hours of training this week in Spain. Okay, then I get that you're not the freshest at the start here. Fair enough, but I guess we'll really see where he stands next week. Next week, no excuses. We'll see where Elisabeth stands. Then Van Toornout. What about him? I think he maybe went a bit too fast in the start, but on the other hand, it is the week before the World Championships and a double weekend. So perhaps Van Toornout tried to go with Van der Poel, felt Van der Poel is too fast, came in the mix after being overtaken by Van Aert, and then thought, you know what guys, I'm not going to do anything crazy here, I'll just take a relax, I need to start tomorrow, I need to be fit next week, I'll just take it easy. What do you think?
I think the level, it looks to be dropping a bit. Over the past month-ish, he's really been doing well, trying to keep up with Van der Poel and Van Aert. Usually been able to make it to the 20-minute mark, even sometimes the half-an-hour mark. But today it seemed like a Quinten Hermans performance, blowing himself up, starting too enthusiastically. And I do think he has a shot at third place, maybe at the World Championships, but he needs to ride the race in a different way, I think.
I guess tomorrow will already tell us something about his performance as well in Overijse, because I think tomorrow is also a more important day for him than today, because he still makes a chance on paper to win that World Cup.
So Van Toornout might have a chance on paper, but realistically, Van der Poel should be the only one that has an actual opportunity to win it. I don't see both Van der Poel and Van Aert not performing at all tomorrow in Overijse.
Then our under-23 top 3 here in Hamme. It was Niels van der Putten making a return after he broke a bone in his back all the way back in Antwerp. He beat out Thibaut Nys, who isn't selected for the World Championships. And then we have Loris Rouillet in 3rd. Quite a surprise here, if I'm going to be honest. I don't know what you think, Twan, but Kamp only 20th and far behind these 3 guys. Guys like Turner and Main also further back. What's the deal here? How come that Kamp, who's been consistently the best under-23 rider, now all of a sudden is beaten by someone like Rouillet?
Maybe some things are getting to him. Maybe the form is declining. It could be a whole bunch of factors. Might just have been a crash at the bad point or something. I don't think we know anything about that. But yeah, he's looked solid all year, and probably want to put this right in Overijse.
Then once again, on the other hand, I already said it before, it's the week before the World Championships, it's a double header, so we shouldn't be digging into this very deep. I still think Kamp is the rider to beat next weekend. Then it's time to go and talk about the women's race, and Twan, he will tell us exactly what happened there.
Yeah, so as is traditional since she joined the first starting row, it was Betsma with a quick start. She was helped out by a small mistake of Alvarado, who held up all the other women as well. Alvarado able to come back with a few other people, basically everyone getting back, but it was Alvarado all the way at the front, and some more mistakes on the parts of Betsma and Brandt, and Alvarado was able to take advantage, went off the front. Betsma managed to chase back quite a bit, but still 20 seconds behind with Manon Bakker on her wheel, and they would never see Alvarado again until after finish. And it was Betsma who ended up dropping Bakker on the last lap, and Brandt coming in for a disappointing 4th place and losing some valuable time in the overall classification here.
Maybe that's the first thing we should actually talk about, that performance of Brandt. Is the first race this season that she doesn't end on the podium. Fourth being your worst result of the season is definitely an accomplishment. What do you make out of this performance? Because she's been the best rider throughout the season, I think that's fair to say. And now she ends fourth. Do you think she should panic towards the next weekend? Or do you think there's maybe a bit of a sandbagging going on?
First of all, it's truly ridiculous that your name isn't Van der Poel and you are able to be on the podium every single race of the season. That's truly impressive. Very impressive. It seems like a great choice to have gone full time on the cyclocross and no longer do the road. And honestly, I think losing like 25-30 seconds here today to throw a little bit of sand in the faces of the competitors wouldn't be the worst thing, but she's the only one who knows how hard she went. Of course, her coach would know as well, but I'm not sure. To me, it looked like she was going for it, but she didn't quite have it, and quite a few things going against her. But it could just all be like some sandbagging.
I think that it was definitely a weird race. At least that was my feeling. It found it pretty hard to try and break through what was going on. Who was really giving its all? Some riders starting to perform out of nowhere, others being worse than expected, like Brandt, Alvarado comfortably winning the race. It's definitely not the race I expected here. So then about Brandt, I do think that Brandt wasn't going 100%. I think what makes me think this is the moment when Brandt was in a bigger group, also with Kant, Van Empel, and I think Worst was there as well, maybe even Ribeirol. And at some point, she just went to the lead of that group and she just powered away and immediately took some seconds out of the group in front of her. For me, that moment gave me the feeling that Brandt was maybe not sandbagging, but maybe just not going as hard, because Sven Nys said she had a hard week of training. And that was the moment I thought, okay, Brandt is definitely still good enough, and panic definitely not needed for Brandt. Nys said it before, what happens this weekend should not affect what's going to happen next weekend. We should definitely also give some attention to the riders who ended in front of Brandt, Alvarado, Betsema and Bakker. Let's start off with the winner, Alvarado. Comfortable win for her this weekend.
Yeah, and a whole lot of weird things happening around her. She just rode her own race and it was more than good enough today. I think she can take the confidence into Overijse and hopefully into the World Championships.
Alvarado now making it 7-12 in the classification towards Brandt this season. I think this was her most comfortable win she had scored this season so far, in front of Betsema, 20 seconds behind. I think for Betsema, I think that she did definitely go all out. I think she definitely wanted to take time back on Brandt. She said it before as well, that is what she was going to do. So for Betsema, I think perhaps she is just lacking slightly to be as good as Alvarado and Brandt.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Although, if they get the sand right in Oostend, of course, she is amazing in the sand. So that's definitely still a thing. Don't think she has to worry too much.
No, I don't think she has to worry. But purely looking at power and form, I think that Alvarado and Brandt have this 0.5% over Betsema. That's just my feeling.
I would agree with that.
Before we talk about Bakker, I will run down the entire top 10. Alvarado in front of Betsema, Bakker, Brandt. Then Van Empel in front of Kant, Worst. In 8th place we saw Marion Norbert, Ribeirol in front of Aniek van Alphen and Jara Kastelein, who rounds off the top 10. As promised, we'll talk now about Bakker, but I would like to do that with our under 23 top 3, which is Bakker in front of Van Empel and Ribeirol. Before we talk about Ribeirol, which we will definitely do, Bakker, a really strong performance. It's not the first time. I think she has been, especially the last couple of weeks, building back to that same form level she had at the beginning of the season, where she was often the 5th or 6th rider. And I think Bakker is definitely one to watch out for in Oostend next week.
Yeah, I think if you take a general picture of the whole season, she really is in that battle for the 5th place. She could even be like the 5th best rider this year overall, and today is just a crown on that season, I think. A very solid ride, getting her 3rd place. and well, good things to come from her, I would guess.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, really strong performance by Bakker. Also for Van Empel, I think these are definitely two of the main contenders for the World Championship jersey next weekend in Oostend. But all of a sudden, reigning champion Ribeirol needs to be put into that list. But nothing indicated this. I mean, where did she find this form? Because nothing indicated this, as I said. She didn't become French champion. She came third. She hadn't got a top 10 in a major race. Okay, she had them, but they were in Gullichem, Breden and Essen. I mean, the big names weren't there. So where does this come from all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think in those smaller races there were like flashes of, oh, maybe Norbert Ribeirol is actually finding some sort of form, but even then she wasn't able to string an entire race together and compete for a podium or even a win. This is very remarkable what she's done here, and it would be basically a big robbery if she was able to take that U23 title.
It almost feels like the old Sanne Kant, like doing nothing really impressive throughout the entire season, and then the weekend before, all of a sudden showing yourself, and boom, you can be there at the World Championships. And maybe like the season where she got World Champion in Bogense.
But I'm sorry, but like Sanne Kant at least is like winning some races here and there and performing like still like solid when she doesn't win. And Norbert Ribeirol is just chilling in 20th places, even last week in Mol.
Yes, okay, but then you also need to take into account that she's still under 23. I mean, for Kant, yes, she does win the races. You have a fair point there. In the season, she became world champion in Bogense. The results were there. She just wasn't the main favorite. I have to agree there. On the other hand, I mean, for Ribeirol, 20th last week to 8th here, it's a big step, and I'm not ruling her out entirely now because of this for next weekend's World Championships.
Yeah, I think she now has to be on the list of people that is considered. I just really hope that she doesn't win it because she's had an abysmal season.
Based on the season, she wouldn't deserve it, no. Based on maybe peaking at the right moment, yes. But I do think we also need to mention that a couple of riders who have a serious shot at the title weren't starting today, in persons of Vash and Puk Pieterse.
Yeah, that's of course also very true. We'll see them in Overijse probably, and that will give us some form indications maybe for those two as well.
Also, Overijse is definitely a very different parcours, so we might see a bit of a different result there than that we saw today. Then a couple of other riders I would like to talk about briefly. First of all, Jara Kastelein ending in 10th. Not her season, we've already said it quite a few times, but still 10th here. I still expected a bit better, even considering the performance of her this season so far.
Yeah, last year you just have the 5 Dutch women with Annemarie Worst there, of course, as well. And this year it's really been different. Worst struggling a little to be that 4th woman from time to time, but Jara Kastelein has been basically nowhere near being that 5th woman. She's had some interesting results, but then again there were results where it just looks like nothing.
It's definitely been a rough season for her, up and down. Perhaps COVID has affected her a bit mentally, that she doesn't have the focus that she wants to have. Nevertheless, I do think that still the raw talent is in there. It just doesn't come out this season, so maybe for her and Vorst it's a season to forget and focus on next season.
Yeah, having said that as well, like there's definitely the glimpses of talent, like the Koppenberg, for example. You really see that she's a very talented rider. She got a 3rd place there, and it was definitely deserved. So hopefully she can bounce back in a good 2021-2022 season.
Then the very last rider here to address shortly is Inger van der Heijden, 12th. I did expect a bit better for her, just like for Kastelein. Her last results that she got in Heusden-Zolder, Dendermonde and Essen gave me a bit of hope. But then again, she hasn't raced for 20 days, so perhaps it's just getting into a rhythm that is causing her to perform slightly below where I expected her.
Yeah, and this, of course, probably not being her favorite sort of parcours, not the quickest out there. So yeah, big gap actually between Lechner and van der Heijden.
Anyway, for Van der Heide, all focus goes on next weekend, where she wants to claim her second world title in the under 23 category. And with that said, I think we've covered it all for the X2O Trofee in Hamme. I would like to thank Twan for coming on.
Thank you for having me on.
And tomorrow we will be back with a new podcast, a podcast about the World Cup in Overijssel, the last round of the World Cup. See you guys then. Goodbye.